first night, Teresa's story, the stepmother's ghost. Nightfall descended, enveloping the forest in a thick, impenetrable black veil that completely cut the group off from the outside world. The flickering campfire cast weak, golden light that danced across their faces, but failed to dispel the suffocating atmosphere encircling them. The wind howled through the trees, its mournful notes like distant cries or wails drifting in from a far-off, invisible realm. The group tried to ease the tension by telling ghost stories around the fire, but a faint sense of unease crept into each breath they took. Teresa was chosen to start the storytelling. Though she appeared hesitant, her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and trepidation, as if the story she was about to tell wasn't just an innocent fright, but something far more sinister and enigmatic. "I'm telling this story because I heard it directly from an old friend," Teresa began softly, her voice tinged with an eerie undertone, like an echo from a long-forgotten past. "It happened to a girl named Tracy," Teresa continued, her gaze fixed on the glowing embers leaping in the dark. Her voice, though quiet, carried a haunting clarity that drew everyone in, silencing the group in suspense. Tracy lived with her father and stepmother in an old, secluded house on the outskirts of town. The house was decrepit and shadowy, its cracked walls seeming to whisper forgotten tales of the past. She paused momentarily, as if carefully choosing which details to unveil. Tracy's relationship with her stepmother had never been good. The woman always looked at her with hatred, as though waiting for the right moment to unleash all the resentment she had bottled up inside. Day after day, Tracy lived under the oppressive shadow of her stepmother, constantly feeling as though she was being watched, even when she was alone. Then, one freezing winter night, when fog shrouded the windows and wind howled through every crevice of the house, the stepmother took her own life in the bathroom. No one ever knew the exact reason, but it was Tracy who discovered her body first. She hung herself with an old rope, her feet hovering just inches off the ground. Her eyes bulged, bloodshot, fixed intently on the bathroom door. That gaze, it was full of hatred and bitterness, as though she wanted to drag someone into death with her. A sudden gust of wind stirred the fire, sending glowing embers swirling into the air, amplifying the unsettling mood. Teresa inhaled deeply before continuing, her eyes darting briefly to the encroaching shadows around them. The group sat frozen in place, no one daring to interrupt. Beads of cold sweat formed along their spines, despite the campfire's warmth. In that fleeting silence, the surrounding air thickened, leaving only the faint sound of wind rustling through the treetops, carrying with it the whispers of distant, unintelligible voices. After the stepmother's death, the house grew strange, as if some invisible force had awakened. Teresa resumed, her tone dropping lower. It was always enveloped in darkness and a bone-chilling cold, no matter the time of day. Sunlight seemed unable to penetrate any corner of the house. At night, Tracy began hearing strange noises, the faint sound of sighs drifting from the bottom of the staircase, and heavy footsteps pacing back and forth along the hallway. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, born from stress, but the sounds repeated every night, as if issuing a warning. Teresa scanned the faces of her friends, her eyes catching the flickering glow of the firelight on their uneasy expressions. The flickering flames cast moving shadows across their features, deepening the tension. But the true terror didn't begin until exactly 7 days later. She whispered, her voice barely audible. That night, as Tracy slept, she was abruptly awakened by a freezing breath against the back of her neck. It was a chill so intense, it felt like an invisible hand gripping her tightly in the dark. Teresa swallowed hard, her eyes distant, as though reliving the horror herself. Shaking with fear, Tracy slowly turned over, and she saw. The group collectively held their breath as the oppressive air seemed to press down on them. Teresa shivered, her voice trembling as she continued. Her stepmother. Her stepmother stood right beside the bed, the rope still twisted around her neck, pulling her head to an unnatural, misshapen angle. Her face was ghastly pale, her skin shriveled and weathered as though ravaged by time, and her lips, a purplish blue, moved silently, mouthing words Tracy couldn't hear. But the most horrifying detail was her eyes, or rather, the voids where her eyes should have been. Empty, black pits stared down at Tracy, brimming with an unending hatred. Teresa took a deep breath, her voice trembling. In that horrifying moment, Tracy heard a voice emerge from those pale, bluish lips. The stepmother's voice was hoarse, filled with hatred, as if it echoed from the depths of hell. You have to do it again. You have to die like me. The surrounding forest fell into absolute silence, as though even the trees held their breath. The campfire crackled suddenly, sending tiny sparks flying and startling the group. A chill ran down everyone's spine, like an invisible frost brushing the back of their necks. Tracy couldn't escape the shadow of that ghost. Teresa continued, her voice growing quieter, as though even she feared the weight of her own story. Every night, the stepmother forced her to reenact the act of death, like a cruel, endless ritual. Under some form of hypnosis, Tracy would rise from her bed in a trance and walk straight to the bathroom. Standing before the mirror, she would be compelled to wrap the rope around her neck, tightening it until the choking sensation blurred her vision and made her eyes roll back. Only then would the ghost vanish, leaving behind a warning that she must repeat it again the next night. Teresa paused, her hands clutching her knees as if to ground herself. The campfire flickered weakly, casting long, wavering shadows on everyone's face. The air seemed heavier, thick with tension, as the wind whispered mournfully through the leaves, resembling faint cries. Day by day, Tracy deteriorated, Teresa continued, her voice strained. Her face became gaunt, her eyes sunken and dark, like someone who hadn't slept for weeks. She couldn't tell anyone, afraid they'd think she'd gone insane. But the marks on her neck became more pronounced, as though she had truly tightened the rope around her throat hundreds of times, despite never doing so consciously. Teresa's gaze swept the group, her eyes glinting with fear, as if the ghost she spoke of lingered somewhere nearby. And then, night after night, the stepmother kept returning. Each time, she grew more horrifying, her face more distorted, her eyes blacker, her voice hoarser, filled with nothing but spite. Tracy knew that unless she completed the ritual, the ghost would never let her go. The group sat frozen, no one daring to breathe loudly. Teresa swallowed hard, her voice slowing as if she, too, felt the despair consuming Tracy. On the fateful night, Tracy realized a horrifying truth. To end it all, she had to truly die. A cold gust of wind swept through, making the campfire waver, almost extinguishing it. The rustling of leaves grew louder, like murmurs from the underworld. The darkness around them seemed to press closer, suffocating. And then, Teresa tilted her head slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper amidst the thick, suffocating silence. Tracy stepped into the bathroom for the last time. She wrapped the rope around her neck, her hands steady. As her vision blurred and her consciousness began to fade, she saw her stepmother smile, a twisted, grotesque smile. The police found Tracy's body in the bathroom the following morning. Teresa continued, her voice heavy, as if dragging the story to its grim conclusion. She hanged herself just as her stepmother had. Same position, same posture. Her eyes were wide open, lifeless, staring into the void as if waiting for someone. But the strangest part happened when they lowered Tracy's body, Teresa said, her tone chilling. In that moment, one of the officers swore he heard faint laughter echoing from somewhere in the room. The group was silent, their nerves frayed. No one dared to ask questions or make a comment. The air was oppressively still, broken only by the wind's mournful howl through the trees, sounding like distant cries. The campfire crackled weakly, its feeble glow too faint to banish the fear that had taken root in everyone's heart. They sat motionless, their gazes distant, as if trying to banish the mental images conjured by the tale. Yet deep down, each felt that the stepmother's ghost might still be lingering somewhere in the shadows, silently watching them from the darkness. "We'd better stick together tonight. No one should wander off alone," one of the group members finally said, breaking the heavy silence. But even that advice couldn't dispel the unease hanging over them, like a dark, oppressive cloud above the campsite.